right, good evening. Time being 7 o'clock, I call to order the Franklin School Committee meeting. Meetings are recorded by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 29, as well as recorded by Franklin Matters. At the conclusion of our meeting, we will be adjourning to executive session and will not be returning to open meeting. All right, we'll begin with our pledge student, James Allen. James, you want to kind of come on up to the mic? James is an 8th grade student at Horace Mann Middle School. James is an honor student and exemplifies what it means to live by the HMMS 6 pillars of character: responsible, trustworthy, caring, fair, respectful, and a model citizen. James is a leader in our school and has recently served as an advisory council representative for 8th grade. We are pleased to have him represent our entire school community tonight. Teachers from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade were thrilled to share the words that they would use to describe James: respectful, inquisitive, kind, positive, upbeat, authentic, dedicated. Beyond academics, James has a passion for hockey. He enjoys biking and hanging out with his younger sister. It is with great enthusiasm that Ms. Motti, Mrs. Sanasoso, and Horace Mann teachers recognize James tonight. We thank him for all the ways he has a positive impact on the Horace Mann Middle School. Well, please rise and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And now, as is customary, we'll pause for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you again very much. If you guys want to take off All right, review of agenda. Agenda look okay to everybody? Let's see. Payment of bills taken care of. Payroll, Vice Chairman McNeil.
Payroll's in order.
All right, FHS student reps.
So for whole school news, Panther Pride Night is going to be held January 30th, where families of 8th graders can see what FHS has to offer. The class of 2027 will have their prom in the new Atrium at Gillette Stadium on May 1st, 2026. To offset the cost of this, they are currently accepting donations of all types that can be dropped off at the FHS main office for Mrs. Curtis, Mr. Layton, or Mr. Penza. Students can now vote for the name of our Panther mascot, with the last day of voting being December 20th. The FHS Orchestra and Chorus have their concert tonight in the FHS Auditorium, and the FHS Concert Band and Wind Assembly have their concert tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. Guidance counselors will be working with sophomores throughout the month of December on career exploration, and students will receive an email 2 days prior to their scheduled seminar. For sports, winter sports had their tryouts last week. Congratulations to all the athletes for completing them. Girls basketball had a scrimmage today in the gym, and boys hockey has a scrimmage today at 7:10 at Tuxbury Memorial High School. Girls hockey has a scrimmage jamboree tomorrow at Canton High School starting at 6:30, and congratulations to Franklin Cheer, who won the D1 state championship once again. For class of 2025, the senior class apparel store will now stay open for the rest of the year. The store has over 90 items, including some for senior parents. You can purchase this using the link on the newsletter or the 2025 social media. We are also starting our Bottles and Cans fundraiser, and we'll be offering at-home pickup or at the high school drop-off this Friday, December 13th from 2:30 to 4 p.m. This fundraiser will continue into the new year, so be sure to save bottles and cans for the holiday parties. Class of 2026, the juniors had a successful fundraiser with Lyman Orchard's Pies. Furthermore, there will be a calendar fundraiser for the junior class that will be sold throughout the month of December. Every student who sells 10 or more calendars will receive a free ticket to prom, and that's all.
All right, thank you very much. Start down here.
Yep, thank you.
And how about online?
Dave, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Sorry. Nothing at this time. Just thanks for the update. Sorry it took so long for me to say that.
No, thank you very much. And Panther Pride Night, January 30th.
Yes.
Been hearing about that for so long. I think that must have been a mistake because I got one, and there's no way that my daughter's going to high school next year. I'm not ready for it. Hopefully, maybe mental health has like a little area to sit down for the
We do.
parents as well.
We do, absolutely, every year.
All right,
So you can
fantastic.
stop by.
I will. Oh.
Resources just for you. I got him, Jenny.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, and how about superintendent's report?
All right, good evening, everyone. Wednesday, December 11th is an early release day for students. FPS educators will engage in professional learning focused on the science of reading, report card revisions and implementation, curriculum development, universal design for learning, culture and climate, and other job-specific training. I'm pleased to share that Franklin was awarded grant funding totaling $15,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed to plan innovation career pathways at Franklin High School. Innovative pathways are designed to give students coursework and experience in specific high-demand industries. They are also designated to create strong partnerships by connecting the needs of a sector and high schools, exposing students to career options, helping them develop knowledge and skills related to this field before they graduate high school. This funding will stipend educators to build the scope and sequence for the pathways, develop curriculum for new courses, design internships, connect with industry partners, inform parents, and recruit students. This is all in context to the work that has been occurring at Franklin High School around program of studies and looking at our programming in general. So this award from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed was certainly appreciated, and it helps us to do the work and stipend the groups of teachers. I'm on the Apply in-house internal emails, and there's been a lot of interest from the teachers at Franklin High to engage in some of this work along with the Wind Block work as well. So this is a reminder. The Franklin Public Schools seeks let me start over. The Franklin Public Schools seeks to value family time by declaring no homework for all students during the December break. Homework-free vacations are not reading-free vacations. Reading is a worthwhile pursuit and strongly encouraged as a daily habit for all students. Vacations may also be an opportunity for students to complete missing work or catch up on assignments or studying. That is from our policy around homework that was established years ago, but just like to put that out around the holiday break so folks know. Finally, as the winter break approaches and the year comes to an end, we at the Franklin Public Schools would like to extend our warmest wishes to our students, our staff, our families, community partners and their loved ones, our school committee, and hope that everyone has a restful and enjoyable winter recess and it's filled with peace and joy. And I know it's a little bit early this year, but we don't have another meeting before the break, so we're saying it today. The winter break will occur from December 21st through Wednesday, January 1st, 2025, and students will return on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. This completes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So,
None from me, thanks.
Yep, so I do have a question. So glad to hear that we did get that grant.
Yes.
Can you speak about the program holistically and like what's the cost of this program? Because I'm assuming the grant is just a portion.
The grant is for us to develop and explore opportunities within our programming. After that, the only costs that would be associated with this would be whatever we decide to ask for within our budget. By getting this initial grant, we do make ourselves eligible for future grants, which the last round, do you remember what they were last round, Dr. Rogers?
It varied depending upon the size of the community.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the community. So basically, this is a planning grant. From there, we would then have to make decisions internally as a district on which pathways would we want to pursue to start. There are other schools in Massachusetts who started this last year and have gone through and made recommendations. The first thing you do is take an audit of your current programming and see where it aligns, and then you look for areas in which, if you were to align a few courses to create a pathway or a theme around a specific area, what would that look like and what would that entail? And do we have the teachers and the coursework already in existence to try to create those pathways? So that's one example. When that happens, you then submit those pathways to the Department of Ed. They then determine through a secondary grant whether they want to put seed money into future projects like staffing or whatever is needed to continue. But we're not under any obligation to commit to anything beyond using the $15,000 that we've received to create these programs and pathways. And at the end, when there's recommendations, make some decisions, and then we will be applying for that future grant just to continue the work. But it's early on. The goal, I know Dr. Weber, Mr. Stark has worked really hard to get to help secure the grant with Dr. Rogers. And what we plan to do is engage the Franklin High School faculty and the leadership there to try to build that out. So it's early, but I do know in January on the 14th, Dr. Weber will be here to present the program of studies for Franklin High School, and I think there'll be some more conversation around it.
Okay, great, yeah, because I think it'd be great for the public to understand what's being done and what could be done. And when they do speak about this, I'd love to see like if they can speak to like what other communities have done as well, just so that folks can see if we invest in our community, we can get other things and really enrich our students and help them be more successful when they leave Franklin Public Schools or even while they're in Franklin Public Schools. So I'm assuming some of this is skills that they can start to use sooner than later.
Yes.
Okay.
And just at the risk of oversharing or overcommitting, we just received the grant last week, and now the goal this year is to just map out and plan and communicate within the community at Franklin High School to determine what could be done, and then move from there.
Okay, perfect. And then the second one, and this may not land well, I guess, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I know we have the no homework policy, and I appreciate that you know, it's great to let students rest. But I guess maybe something we should think about is how do we incentivize our students to do extra? I know we ask them to read and it's continuous and it's not necessarily homework, but can we provide them something that would incentivize them as an optional thing to do over the break so that we can help catch up some of this learning loss that we hear about a lot from families, and put the onus on the families to help push their kids to say, hey, you know, instead of playing video games for 6 hours, here, read this book, and maybe do something to help get extra credit at school, just something just to help incentivize them, versus just, it's reading, it's fun, it's good for you, and because I think you need to have something else other than just pure enjoyment. So just a thought.
Okay.
So
We will take it under consideration.
cool. Thank you.
A committee was formed to develop a few things in that area, and one of the recommendations was trying to just give people the holiday. It also was pre-COVID. I understand your point around gaps, but I'm thinking about, I went to parent-teacher conferences this year, and a parent had asked the teacher for my son's science class, what can he do for extra credit? And she was like, extra credit? He should just do the work that I'm assigning, and then he wouldn't need extra. So I'm thinking of her.
Yeah.
You probably know what I'm talking about. But she was just like, this is a foreign concept to me. I don't understand this. Why would he need extra credit if he's doing the work? And then there's a makeup opportunity. You know, that's it. So I'm joking with you, Al, but I understand your point around that. So
Cool. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you for the update and for the description of the Career Pathways program and grants. It's a very exciting opportunity that we have. And I'm going to assume it's still way too early because you said we just got the money. We're still in the planning process. But do we have any idea yet if like what subject matter we might think of pursuing for the career pathway, or it's like, are there requirements around the program, or is it just very open ended? Like are we allowed to just decide based on?
There's flexibility. I think I'd like to wait until January to share more information. I think it's too soon. But I do think they try to look at where is the student interest, what types of classes are students in Franklin, at Franklin High School. You're going to look at your specific context and see where is the interest, and then where is the industry, which you compare to. What are kids leaving Franklin High to pursue in secondary education, and how do we align? So if you have a high percentage of students in one particular area, they want to go into a medical field, a business field, biosciences, things like that. I think that's all. Those are all considerations. So I think we will have more information. It's exciting. I'm excited about the opportunity, and when we know more, we'll certainly be sharing it, particularly with the school committee as an update, but also with the community at large. But I think there's more internal discussions with the Franklin High School that need to occur.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And so it sounds like we have like a lot of leeway and flexibility to cater it to our student body interests and also our strengths and our our curriculum, right?
Correct.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lucas. The fiscal year, this is the biggest amount we received in the grants, or anything else is?
Did we receive any other grants this year? Related to this,
Yes.
or, this is the only, planning grant that they offer for this year. If you do the planning grant with them as stage one, you then show the outcome of that work, and then you apply for the second grant. It's almost like you can't receive the second grant, which is a larger sum, until you've, done the legwork. There's a whole criteria, there's a reporting, there's a lot of information they need to see in order for them to, qualify you for any additional money.
That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And online.
Is this for me? Because I didn't know if I'm the only one online, right?
Sullivan.
Okay. So that's great news about the grant. Anytime we can be investing, it's just funny sometimes I forget that like you're running a district on top of like the budget stuff we're doing and then the redistricting we're doing, and it's like we're doing all these extra things too. So awesome! Kudos to your staff. And to Al's point, this may be a little bit off topic, but you know, I was recently told by somebody who I was having this conversation about librarians at our schools, and how it's just like one of the areas that like seem to like, you know, go first when you have like so much other, you know, triaging to go through as a district. And I think unfortunately librarians, you know, I've said this before, but a lot of people just think it's sort of like your neighbor's mom helping you check out a book, but they're helping people source information and do all these things. And that would be like a fun project that I know, like someone like our public library, Callie, does these like fun projects with, you know, kids during breaks and try to keep them engaged and like extra credit or like make it a game. And I think sometimes people don't realize, you know, these little things that maybe just having some more educators in the building would help kind of create these like fun, extra unique opportunities for learning that maybe is learning, like covert learning, you know, because they make it a fun game and things. So I wouldn't be, you know, on brand if I wasn't talking about how our budget's, you know, tough and some of these cool ideas that come out of our committee. You know, sometimes it's just limited bandwidth too. But it's cool. It's cool to hear you guys are, you know, gonna think about what industries are booming right now. Those are the conversations, you know, I encourage parents to be having with their kids right now as like, we try to ease the pressure off of kids and getting into college. Like, it's like, what are we doing? What's the industry that's booming? What do we want to learn about? So anyway, great news. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to round it out again with that, talking about that grant. I think it's great. One, I know so much of the conversation this year, it's all been about the pre-K to 8, like reorg, school reorg. So I think just for the high school community to kind of know all the stuff that you're still doing, all the changes that are being made is fantastic. And then when it comes to the grants, do we track that? Like, is there like a spreadsheet that kind of shows all the grants that you've acquired or put in for?
Yeah.
Right,
or
yes.
received? Yes, okay.
And we will report out that during the budget process. If you request it sooner, we can certainly do that. But we keep track of the grants that we've been awarded. Some are competitive, and then some are non-competitive. I forget the terminology, but we, you know, this was one that we had to apply for and put in, and they only selected so many school districts to make this happen. So it was a competitive grant.
That's fantastic, because I know oftentimes, as we're kind of going through like the presenting before FinCom and the town council and, you know, a lot of during like that budget season, there's a lot of those questions about, you know, well, what other monies are we kind of going at? Because you hear those other departments kind of talk about the different grants, the different opportunities.
Mhm.
So to really kind of highlight a lot of that great success is, I think, would be really beneficial and really helpful. So,
And just last thing I would say with grants, and I know we want to keep going with the program, grants can be a double-edged sword. Some grants you apply for and they drive what you do. And I think that was Al's point earlier a bit, that question. So sometimes you apply for a grant, you're so happy you received it, but now you have to take all these actions that aren't in context with what your plan was to start the year off. So those are ones that someone will say, why didn't you apply for that? Because we have embarked in a different path that we're on with our strategic planning. This would have just been like a complete 180, and we'd be telling people to do something completely different. So you have to look for things that are aligned, and then you have to seek out things that support the goals that you have as a school or as a district. This is an area where we saw this, and we're seeking this type of opportunity out, because we're always looking to develop our programming, and we want to look at how are we organized, and use the high school as an example. How are we organizing the progression of courses students can take? And if there's a way to align those that lead to an innovative pathway that's been dubbed by the Department of Ed, it only strengthens our students. It allows our staff to have more predictability with some of the way the schedules would be aligned as students progress through 9th through 12th grade. And then it also allows for students to have left Franklin High with a body of work that's themed if there's an area they want to pursue, which happens to be the area that a lot of the secondary, post-secondary colleges are looking at now too. It's like, what's your interest? What evidence do you have to show that you've demonstrated enough work in that interested pathway? When I went to school, it was like you had to do everything and spread yourself out really thin. They're looking for students who engage in deeper work in a particular area of interest, and then have the coursework to back that up.
That's great. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that. All right. Any other questions, comments? Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then guest presentations.
Okay. We are excited to welcome Ms. Patty Gay, our Director of Lifelong Learning. She will be presenting and providing an update, as she does annually, on the Lifelong Learning Program and all the great things we have for our students in Franklin. And adults.
Hi, everyone.
Patty?
Thank you for having me. Always nice to be here. My name is Patty Gay, and I'm Director of Lifelong Learning, and I'm here to talk about lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is the fully functioning, self-sustaining part of Franklin Public Schools, and it's been in existence since 1998. We are primarily 4 branches. We have the Solutions Program, Community Learning, Music Academy, and summer programs. The Solutions Program is our before and after school program. We open, do before school from 7 a.m. to the start of school, then we open again at dismissal, and we're open till 6 o'clock on regular school days. And we are currently located at each of the elementary schools. Community learning provides some diverse and rich education for adults as well as children through our Kids Corner. It's a resource for all ages. Some categories of courses that we offer: arts and crafts, lifestyle and culture, exercise and wellness, some team sports, special events and workshops, some online opportunities, and then our Kids Corner, which is for students in grades K through 8. Music Academy is proud to offer educational music experiences. The instructors that we've had have been here for years and take pride in offering fun programs in the area of music. And we have benefited hugely from their enthusiasm and their dedication to music and for lifelong learning. We offer the string school, band school, chorus and glee. We also offer private music lessons, and we also offer the mentor programs throughout all of the music programs. Summer 2025 will look very similar to previous summers. We are offering Solution Summer Adventure, STAR as well as Ready Set Kindergarten, Summer STEAM, Summer Music, Preparing for College, with Writing a College Essay and the Common App Boot Camp, the high school experience, as well as some community learning courses as well, primarily in the team sports and a couple of the Kids Corner classes as well. So this is our lifelong learning team. We have 2 offices currently. We are at Oak Street and then we're at the high school. The above picture is myself, as well as Jennifer Maitland and Jessica and Stacy. They're the assistant directors of lifelong learning. And below is our office at the high school. We have Sheila Darcy, who's a music director, We have Ashley Rose Mello, she is the office manager at the high school. We have Mary Ellen Santelises, who coordinates our community walking at the high school. And then we have Mary Allison Cotman, who is the program manager for community learning. So just to give you an overall overview of enrollment and staff, these are our fall numbers. So as you can see, we do offer and have a lot of participants in all our programs. And again, we always try to align with the district improvement plans throughout our programs, through musical movement, mindfulness, staff trainings. It's always popular when we coordinate with the Franklin Police Department and offer security classes for our students. Ready Set Kindergarten, which is one of our transition programs from kindergarten, from preschool into kindergarten, and the High School Experience, which is also a transitional program, helping orient the 8th grade students into high school. We offer engaging in regular curriculum through our programs as well. We offer high quality instruction and help to meet the social emotional needs of students. And again, highlighting some of those transitional programs, which really help to kind of ease that transition. We offer effective two-way communication to support student learning through our community partnerships. We participate in the Franklin Downtown Partnership activities, the Cultural Council, and again, the collaboration with Franklin Police. And we also seek input in all of the things that we offer through the evaluation process. Whenever anyone participates, they get a survey, and we like to get feedback from people that participate so we know what people are looking for and how we can improve on those things. So our website is franklinlifelonglearning.com, and I want to thank you for having me here tonight. And as always, we really appreciate the support we get from the district through the central office, through facilities, through technologies, through student services, and everyone that helps us to do what we do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Open questions and comments from the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Benny. This program is exclusively designed for the Franklin schools or any other towns as well?
Our summer programs students can come from other towns. Yeah. Some things that are specific to Franklin are the Ready Set Kindergarten, which really models what Franklin does in kindergarten, as well as the High School Experience. Caters to what we do at Franklin High.
Yeah, the other one, the two-way communication, does it help with the community or?
Yep.
So you have a partnership with the Franklin PD. Do you take students to a good PD and educate them, or just for the namesake or partner with them?
We partner with them to be part of the community, so that they can, teach our students things that they know. And the home security is a very popular program with students and families. And so whatever we do, whatever courses that we do, the evaluations go out so we can get feedback from the community. Yeah.
That's how Franklin schools are #1 in the vicinity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty, for this presentation again. It's always good to see you and hear about the work that you're doing. First question, so with the redistricting, what do we anticipate lifelong learning programs looking like next year as opposed to this year? Is there going to be as much continuity as possible? Will there be some differences? What do we anticipate?
Well, there'll be, of course, some differences, but we're already in the process of working with the district and moving forward and being able to provide our programs again.
Okay, so we anticipate all the programs that we offer now, or most will continue on in some way, shape, or
Teacher
form?
proposals are out right now for STEAM courses, for STAR classes. So yeah, we anticipate running everything just as we have in the past.
Excellent. And then, like, looking forward as well, like with the consolidation of resources, do we anticipate maybe being able to offer a more diverse array of courses, too? Might not be able to
Yeah, we,
promise that right now, but.
Yeah, HR is doing something right now that they're putting out job postings to all of the staff. And that has helped us to get some courses that we haven't offered in the past. So I think putting that out there and knowing that, they do a nice job at that, putting that out so everybody knows what's available. And because of that, we've got some unique things this year. So looking forward to that.
Awesome, thank you. We look forward to seeing that.
Okay, thank you, Patty, appreciate this. And yeah, I always love hearing about the programs that Lifelong Learning provides. Definitely great stuff for all ages, and as Mr. Jagir had said, for adults as well, for different things. But can you, I know we've talked about this before, but just for those that may not be close, can you speak to, like, how does Lifelong Learning fit in with the school district's budget?
With the budgets?
Yeah.
Well, we are self-sustaining, but we do give money back to the district as well I think it's been like that for many years, just to give back because we are in the buildings using facilities and using all of the resources, so we do give back as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Yep, so even though you're under the umbrella of Franklin Public Schools, you're a separate entity. You have your own budget. It's
Correct.
whatever we approve at the end of the year. For the next year, it's not necessarily tied to that because you're.
Correct.
So, okay.
That's correct.
So this is one reason why these programs still can continue even though that we've had some budget cuts in the
Yeah.
past. So
Yeah.
definitely a great resource that not all towns have, which we're fortunate to have you. The next one, I know that there were some changes this year for the music program. Can you speak to what we did differently this year for music compared to last year?
I'll do the best I can.
Sure.
Because of the changes that are happening next year, are you talking specifically about the string school or the band school?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the terminology is not my forte, but because of that move, the prep is not in existence this year, in hopes that once we collaborate as the middle school, we can bring that back again.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and for those that are close, I know from a middle school level, we had multiple different levels of music, and because we have lifelong learning, which is great, we've been able to do that there. So thank you for providing that avenue.
And the jazz was set up differently this year, just because of the changes that we were, able to offer it, but it just looks a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think it's good to know, because I think people hear that we've had cuts as a result of the budget, but then they're hearing, oh, well, we still have jazz and we still have orchestra and and this is why, because it's not necessarily through the district anymore. We've reached outwards, and Lifelong Learning has helped fill that gap. So once again, thank you. And just something to think about. I know one common thing I hear from parents, there's always programming for younger kids, but as they get older, it gets harder and harder. So just a thought, I don't know if there's more focus to see what we can do for programming for middle school and above, so that those students have something else, especially where clubs are limited, and then even in the summertime, camp offerings are limited for the older age as well. So.
Yeah. As I said, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you see the list. There are a few additions, and it is in that age category, so, yeah.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
so-
parents will be very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, less Fortnite, more lifelong learning.
Al, I'm sensing there's a lot of video games going on at home.
Just a little bit. So, cool, thank you. We appreciate you coming and presenting.
Thank you.
Also.
Thanks, Patty, as always. I am proud to say that I have one remaining live plant from the gardening camp this summer. I mean, I had 2 kids there, so I think we brought home like 15 plants, but one is still alive, and I feel proud, so there you go. So I'm curious, my kids are at Keller. I hear a lot from families that at Keller were not able to get into Solutions this year. I am definitely misquoting when I say I think it was full in 14 seconds. I was wondering if with the redistricting, you could see a benefit to the Solutions program of being able to operate in fewer buildings, whether there was an ability to increase capacity to meet more of that demand as the building setup changes, and whether there's any way to, kind of survey parents, see who might be interested in it, so that you have a sense of really how much demand there is going into those new buildings.
Yeah, we're hoping to expand a little bit. Coming together at Keller's one of our bigger programs, and Kennedy is one of our bigger programs. So we've been working together to earmark some spots for the students to be, some storage areas. So we're hoping that we'll be able to expand a little bit without getting too big, that we're still maintaining that quality units.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are working with central office and the team so that we can make that work.
Yeah, and I know that in the past, maybe there was like a situation at Keller specifically, and I don't know about the other schools, where because the cafeteria was being utilized, but then there would be teacher-staff meetings in there, and the program needed to move, and that was part of the capacity issue, if I'm remembering correctly from last year. That, kind of going into this restructuring, if those things were, addressed in advance, hopefully that wouldn't cause the reshuffle of
we are
kids.
working on that.
That's incredible, thank you.
Yeah.
I think my only other question is when are we gonna get a program preview for summer? I know a lot of people are gonna mark down that February 3rd date, and now we're all eagerly waiting to see what will be coming.
We're hoping to get it up by mid-January.
Incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you. And O'Sullivan.
Thanks for the update. My daughter's one of the orchestra saviors from the middle school, so I appreciate you taking care of her. So I hear a lot. I participate in the music boosters and things, so it's just great to hear, because without middle school strings, I heard from a lot of parents that attended the concerts at Horace Mann this year for the in-house music program, and which has gone from 22 employees down to 5 in a very kind of short window because of just budgetary constraints, and it was a little bit sad to see the parking lot not full. It used to be like a Taylor Swift concert on concert nights, and it was a little bit less full, the attendance and things, and essentially that's the farm team for the high school. So and our high school music program, Diane Plouffe, God bless her, is lights out, but I really appreciate all the work that Sheila does. I loved your slide that pointed out all the different people working in the administrative office of lifelong learning, because it's nice to see them and know who they are, because we see them often, and I don't always know who's in the other departments. So that was nice to show us that. I'll try to remember names better. And then yeah, just appreciate what you do in that regard. And then Erin asked about the summer launch, so we'll stay tuned for hearing what's coming, because I hear from parents too, about programs that you do all summer that are great. I know my kids participate in them, so thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Patty, thank you so much for this presentation, but all the work that you do. And like Betty said, kindergarten and Solutions was just so incredibly important for my kiddos and my family. And with Solutions, I think we spoke about this in another meeting, but as we added those extra couple of half days at the end of the year, if we just want to confirm that if you're already enrolled in the Solutions program, that those additional half days would just kind of be treated as a normal Solutions after half day after.
Yeah,
right?
we are opening at dismissal and we're closing at 3, which is what we used to do for holiday weeks, and that just it keeps the tuition the same for parents, so they don't have to pay anything additional, and it still provides our staff with time to pack up their stuff and get ready for
And have parents that are enrolled, or families that are enrolled in the Solutions Program, they've been notified of that, that update?
Monthly, yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Really, thank you so much. This is
Thank you.
fantastic. Keep up the great work.
thanks.
Thank you, Patty.
All right, up next, we got a reorganization level-based presentation.
Okay. So next in your agenda, I'm excited to invite up our principals from the pre-K, elementary, and middle level. I'd like them all to, you can all come up and sit together. We have Ms. Kim Taylor, the ECDC principal, who will be joined by Carrie Busavage, Brad Hendrickson, Evan Chelman, as the representatives for the elementary schools for next year, along with Craig Williams, our principal for the middle school. So they're going to be sharing the mic and joining. And just as they get set up, it's a good segue. Patty's actually an ad hoc member of the reorg team, so when it's specific to space and needs, she's been in communication. Your question around the cafeteria usage was all part of a discussion I happened to be a part of when we did some walkthroughs, so these are active discussions. So what we're doing is we have a core group, and then we invite folks that touch one piece of the system and make sure that we consider that. So without further ado, we have a presentation. Just to put this in concept, we've been talking a lot, or I've been talking a lot as a superintendent. I've had Colin join me as Director of Operations. And as we move through the year, the goal is to distribute some of the microphone and the talking to people closest to the work. And it's similar to how we handle communication guidelines. You always go to the people closest to the, well, we encourage people to do that, most do. But ultimately, we have the folks who are really deep into the work who will share an update with you. And I think as we move through the year, you'll continue to see these folks, these leaders, along with perhaps others who were involved in the work in some capacity, to just share updates and information. So without further ado, I will pass it over to you all. Thank you for being here.
So is this one you?
This one is me.
All righty.
So, thank you. Okay. So this is just an agenda. These are the topics that we'll cover tonight. I'll let it queue up on the screen for those at home. But ultimately, we wanted to walk through a couple of key pieces. So you'll see some level-based updates in there, along with some next steps. And yeah, you can hit the slide. So just with staff placement, we've talked about this before, but just to tee this up, there are 3 requirements for us to get to a place where we can place staff effectively, pre-K through 8. And ultimately, we need to finalize a framework of a master schedule. The master schedule is the silent engine of a school. It basically drives everything, and it also informs the types of positions and roles we need to support the students in each of these schools. This is a brand new, these are all new schools. I've said this before. We are effectively in Franklin doing something. We're not just building one new school and redistricting some students. We're in effect unifying 3 middle schools under one roof to make a new middle school, unifying 5 elementaries to make 4 elementary schools, which is quite a complicated task. We're taking the time we need to do this thoroughly and thoughtfully, but ultimately we want to get to the place where we have framed out a master schedule, just the framing of it, so we know who we need to help support the students in each of these levels. The second piece is working with our union to work out, just as we reorg, just the rules of the ground rules or the rules of the road on how we'll place staff, and look at what considerations need to be factors as we look at placement. And the third piece is just looking at instructional leadership, and as we've discussed before, identifying who your instructional leaders are ultimately have a trickle effect on other roles that you have within your system. So it's a shared priority because they do impact our ability to arrive at a budget. They also impact assignments, spacing, floor plans, and moving plans ultimately. You need to know where people are going in order to effectively move them, obviously, by the end of the year. So that's all the work that's happening behind the scenes. You can move on.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Superintendent Jagir. Good evening, everybody. Mrs. Busavage and I are here this evening representing the elementary team, the principals and assistant principals who are helping to spearhead the steering committee work. So we'll just kind of get started with just the basics. The elementary steering committee has just had two meetings, right? So a combination of 3 hours. Who are the people that are making up this steering committee? We have the elementary principals and assistant principals. There are 13 classroom teachers ranging from kindergarten to 5th grade. Pretty even representation as well, which was important. We have 2 curriculum specialists on the committee. We have 5 special educators, and we also have service providers as well. We have a unified arts teacher representing, and we also have the elementary director of student services and the director of visual and performing arts joining us too. So we started off by doing what most elementary teachers do, which is we started creating a community, right, a safe space where this group can do good but difficult work. So we started off with some norm development so that we can hold one another accountable and, showing up prepared, being present, leaning in on difficult discussions. The norms that typically show up in large committee work, they didn't disappoint. They came up during these talks too. So that's kind of how we started, getting to know one another and creating some agreed upon rules for how we were going to move forward. So far, the meeting dates that we've had, November 21st, December 2nd, and then we're going to determine the meeting dates of 2025. It might actually turn out that we plan a couple meetings and then do the work that needs to be done and then see where we're at. Because as Superintendent Jagir mentioned in the previous slides, some of the decisions that we'll be making, some of the work we'll be doing are tied to the natural flows in a school year, like budget season and such. So we are going to move to the next slide and talk a little bit about some of the other work that we've done thus far.
Sure. So, good evening. Thanks for having us. I think what Mr. Chelman was talking about in terms of when he spoke to community, I think one of the essences of a steering committee is to honor the communities that we're all a part of. I think their admin teams, their grade level teams, their current school communities, and what you bring forth to develop a new school community. And we wanted to make a space and a place for teacher voice and input through our steering committee work, and that was really important to us as we set the second agenda for the second meeting. We also talked with the group about sort of that continuum of shared decision-making models, and sometimes leader-led, sometimes group decision-based. And we launched that second meeting with really seeking input and seeking to learn. And that was the structure that we built. So out of that first meeting, after the norm setting, we also had committee members sort of identify the big target areas or focuses for subcommittee work. So we really took it from the staff members in that room in terms of identifying the 6 focus areas that you see. So daily operations and schedules, facilities, logistics and moving, team building, development of staff culture, community engagement, developing traditions and school culture, special education and inclusive practices, and student perspective in creating schools for all. So we launched with a carousel activity where we had all 6 committee topics out there, and we asked staff members to think about 4 different perspective taking pieces and questions when looking at these 6 things. So we said, what are you wondering? What questions are you bringing forth? What's on your mind? Not only those that are in the room, but what have you heard from colleagues that you want to bring forward? What are opportunities that fall within each of these committee areas for future work? What are barriers that you are thinking about or that might exist? And then what are you looking to promote or carry forth and carry forward in your new school community? So we really, we had 10-minute rotations. They were productive, efficient, so much shared, I think that was reflected that we all appreciated in terms of what was on their minds. One of the things with this committee work too is them being sort of that communication between staff members and steering committee. So the December 4th staff meeting, They actually provided updates in their buildings around what was done to date on those meetings. And we shared a Google form with staff, with all staff, with those 6 areas so that they could also share input and feedback. And there were 95 staff members that responded to that Google form. So the work now that we have in front of us is looking at those responses with committee members, looking at what the committee generated, seeing where there's overlap, seeing what's new, and then really deciding based upon those norms what's actionable. And it's that fluidity piece, you know, in terms of what's timely and what can we further like delve into now, and what do we have to pause, but then hold and then move into. So I think that's where we're going, I think with work to come.
Right, and I think that it's important to, just to highlight the idea of like, these committee members of being liaisons, right? And we spent a little bit of that first meeting talking about why they chose to apply. And almost all of them shared that they were excited to be a voice, and also to not just travel to the committee meetings, but also away from the committee meetings back into the building communities too, and listen and report out. So we want to make sure that we all have a vehicle, created a vehicle by which that could happen, like this Google form, to be able to not just take input from these 20 committee members, but you know, everyone out there that's going to be impacted. But also understanding too that like, we're probably gonna have a moving company that shows up, they train us, they tell us exactly what to do, and then we do it, right? So there are things that we have control over and things that we don't have control over, and everything in between. In terms of next steps, we are going to finalize the formation of the subcommittees based on that initial work. We're gonna use the input from the committee and also the colleagues that we solicited, making sure that diverse perspectives are included. So someone who maybe just wasn't able to make the meetings and applied to be on the committee still have a voice. Once established, those subcommittees are going to begin their work, laying that foundation for goals and initiatives, and kind of being brought along, but helping to drive the work. So members are going to continue to report out at building staff meetings too, and for anyone who wants to just kind of swing by and say, hey, by the way, I had this on my mind, and they can bring that to the committee. So again, it's early on, and we're looking forward to heading into 2025 and start to really make some headway with the group. So I didn't know if there were any questions for elementary, or what we could do is probably continue and move on and then circle back if that works. All right, perfect.
All right, everyone. Craig Williams, and I will be the principal of Franklin Middle School, and wanted to give a very similar update to what the elementary steering committee just provided. We'll start off with the makeup of the middle school committee. We're looking at 9 classroom teachers from grades 6 through 8. I believe an even split, as well as an even split of the 12 members. We have 4 members from the current Annie Sullivan, 4 members from the current Remington, and 4 members from Horace Mann, so very happy about that distribution as well. We have 2 special educators and service providers, 1 unified arts teacher, similar to elementary school. We have our secondary director of special education as part of the steering committee, as well as a member of the Office of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Tim Frazier. We also have our Director of Visual and Performing Arts as part of this as well, knowing that middle school music is something that we want to make sure that we're addressing to the best of our ability. We also have our formed middle school admin team that is actively part of this steering committee. Similar to the elementary school, we also spent our first meeting focused on norms. The way we did this is we actually asked our committee to think about the pet peeves that they have when working in large groups, and the strengths that they bring to the table, and creating norms off of what's going to prevent those pet peeves from hitting, basically. And so that really provided some vulnerable yet productive conversation to help us establish these norms when we're doing the hard work that has been discussed. At this point, we've had one meeting, and that was establishing our norms. And we'll have meetings that, actually on Thursday, and then the Thursday before break as well. And then similar to the elementary school steering committee, we're looking at, really shaping our meetings based off of our subcommittee work and building the schedule, and being responsive to our needs in that moment. Thank you. So really one of our first, after targeting the norms, really what we're focusing on, as Mr. Jaguar stated, really working on that silent engine, our master schedule, and finding a way in which we can optimize a middle school schedule that's going to align with our district goals, maximize student learning time, and effectively leverage all of our resources. So that's one of the major focus areas that we're engaged in. And then we really, in a similar way, we've established our subcommittees in terms of what those topics will be. And I think you'll see a lot of similarities to the elementary school, but just, verbiage is a little different. We focus on student culture and connection, staff culture and connection, the safety, operations and management, teaching and learning, and community engagement. And we're really hopeful to then, again, leverage our members to be people who are true liaisons between the steering committee work as well as their buildings. We keep talking about the need for, in this whole process, the need for leadership. And our steering committee are such essential leaders in this entire process to bring the entire community along, to share important information both ways. I think it's going to be so important that there are eyes and ears in this process as well as we're navigating this significant change. So in a similar way, we're looking at what our next steps are. Our meeting on Thursday is going to be we'll be doing some professional learning around the building of a master schedule. We did some activities as an admin team in which we talked about what were some of our priorities moving into the 25-26 school year for a master schedule. And what we'll do is, as a steering committee, go through and brainstorm the different priorities that we have, as well as a list that we already have in hand. Talk as a committee of what's a must-have, what do we truly need to have, what's a can-have, and then what's kind of like a nice-to-have, that as we go through, because we're not going to be able to have everything that we want, but we want to be as close as possible and really make sure that we're prioritizing that. But also as a steering committee, be able to help them see sometimes, when you're going through and prioritizing, they each have an impact on each other. If we put more time towards this, that means it has to come from somewhere. And that in some ways there is a zero-sum nature to building a schedule. And so just helping build that background knowledge as when they're communicating with their colleagues about, why'd this schedule turn out that way? They'll have some more insight into it, and we'll be able to build that conversation and have that conversation. We also, then the next week before we go on vacation, we're going to be focusing on providing key input and feedback on key elements of the master schedule. At this point, we're not going to give them the entire schedule because one, it's not finalized yet, and we just want to make sure that we're being tactful in what's that we're all looking at it in manageable chunks. And one of the first things that we're going to look at is our flex block, which is an intervention block. Currently is where our music is, and as where also special education services occur. So it's a very significant part of our day in which we want to look at how we can optimize that period and look at various models from surrounding districts as well as our current one, and really get a sense of how we're going to use that, what is now an hour of every single school day, how we can maximize that time. So that will be the sort of that first chunk of the schedule that we're really going to dig deep into. as a committee. And then, similar to our elementary school, really make sure we're finalizing our subcommittee membership, as there's a lot of great projects, exciting projects, that need to be done in those areas. And really looking forward to being able to, once we move on, have a stronger sense of our schedule to really be able to tackle a lot of that work that's going to maybe not be the silent engine of the school, but the quite noisy engine of the school as we move forward there.
All right.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The sharing that I'm going to do tonight is two-pronged. One is around the master plan recommendation regarding the ECDC expansion. And the second part will sound very familiar to my colleagues, as we also have a steering committee at the ECDC for the expansion. So I'm going to start with where we are with the expansion process right now and what that has looked like, which really began way back when the whole facilities overview was done and what led to all of the decisions that were made. And one of the recommendations from the master plan was that there was going to be some movement or some direction taken in regards to the ECDC and how we are expanding. We were hearing a lot about other enrollments, dropping back, but the ECDC has readily expanded over the years. And I think one of the most important data points around that is 5 years ago, the ECDC had 6 preschool classrooms, and now, just 5 years later, we are double that at 12. And we have had to expand into a portion of Horace Mann. So that was part of the master plan recommendation. So what we did, first we went through a process that involved the entire staff. In October, Superintendent Jagier met with the staff for a roundtable and went over his presentation that had been shared with the public regarding what the recommendations were. And one of those recommendations was that we would be looking at expansion of the ECDC. And so what would that look like? We all had our ideas at the administrative level, but what would the staff think that could look like? Because they're the ones who live and breathe it every single day. So we took them through a workshop process where they were given some parameters, basically non-negotiables. And those non-negotiables were that the programs in our building would remain together. So our 3-year-old program would not be split, our 4-year-old students would not be split, and that our STAR program, which is our substantially separate program for students with autism, and their partner typical classrooms would remain together. So those were the parameters they were given, and then we gave them some brainstorming time to just go at it. What do you think this could look like? They knew we were going to be in 2 locations. That was how the expansion was going to occur. And we are very cognizant about using the word expansion and not split or separation, because we are very committed to 1 school, 1 community, 2 locations. So that was part of the conversation. What would that look like in 2 different locations? And so some of the scenarios that the staff came up with were ones we had thought of before, but they were involved in coming up with these scenarios. So the first scenario was that our pre-K2 students, which are our 3-year-old students, would be housed at Pond Street, and our pre-K1 students, our 4-year-olds, and our STAR program and partner programs would be at the Oak location. The other scenario that came up was basically just a flip of our 3 and our 4-year-old programs, with the STAR program and partners remaining at Oak Street. And then there was a thought about splitting the programs. We had some people who were like, I know you gave us parameters, but here's an idea, to have essentially 2 mini ECDCs, 1 at each location that had both sets of programs. And that was quickly, we had some discussion around it and basically quickly decided that that would limit collaboration among staff and teachers who were teaching in the same programs, and how important that was in order to benefit the students. And with only two 3-year-old classes, that would mean one at one location, one at the other, and that limits a lot of collaboration and opportunity for students to be getting a similar experience. So what ended up happening and what was decided after the staff put forward their recommendations, there was additional conversation that our final recommendation would be that our pre-K2 program, which is our 3-year-old students, and they are 2 years out from kindergarten, would be at Oak Street. So our 3-year-olds will be at Oak Street. Our substantially separate program will be at Oak Street with their partner classrooms. So those are our typically developing students who do the inclusion and integration opportunities. So that will be the population for the Oak Street location. The decision was made to expand the pre-K1 program, which is our 4-year-old students who are 1 year out from kindergarten, at Pond Street. So the Oak Street location would have 7 classrooms, and the Pond Street location will have 5 classrooms. And the couple of the biggest drivers around that decision were that these students who are 1 year out from kindergarten would have an opportunity to experience an elementary school experience, so to speak. There's a gym, there's a cafeteria. They'll be able to practice eating in the cafeteria. So real life experiences that they will have the following year. And so that is 5 classes that we currently have of that population at Oak Street will be housed at Pond Street. And then what's really important to note, as I said, that goes along with the one community, 2 locations, is both locations will continue to have special education services. Both locations will continue to have related service providers. And both locations will continue to have a secretary, a nurse, and some sort of administrative oversight. So we're really, really concentrating on how this is just 2 different locations, but we are still and will continue to remain one school community. So here's the steering committee update, which you will hear a lot of the same kind of things have gone on. We have formed a steering committee also because there's a lot of work to be done in regards to what this expansion will look like. And we have representatives that go across our school staff population. We have had 1 meeting already, at which time we also established norms, very similar norms development as the other levels did as well. We did the pet peeves. It was an interesting.
Yeah, actually, one of my pet peeves is when people don't give credit. So, like, Mr. Williams totally came up with this. We stole it. You stole it. Right? So, like, just addressing my own pet peeves.
My pet peeve is when people make me blush in meetings.
We should separate ourselves then.
So we also went through that process in order to establish our norms for our steering committee. We also had an opportunity to review the Pond Street location, the map, so that we could get an idea of where we would be in the building, which was actually confirmed today. I did a site walkthrough with Colin and Mr. Harn from facilities and Mrs. Morano and myself and my team chair, Jillian Swanson. So we got a chance to actually see the space that the kids will be in. And then we started some beginning conversations. We had gone about collecting some questions from the field, as we call them. What are the people in our community wondering about in regards to staffing and what that would look like? And then tomorrow morning, a letter to our school community will be sent out with the updates that are being presented this evening and notifying the community of what our programming will look like for next year. So we're excited. I have to say I'm actually even more excited after visiting Pond Street this afternoon. So there's a lot of potential and a lot of opportunities for our kids who are going to be going to kindergarten the following year. So that's an exciting opportunity for us. So we're looking at this from an opportunity perspective and what kinds of benefits and gains are we going to get for our entire school community through this process.
We have a couple just generic reorganization updates and next steps to go over. So first is the facilities and moving. We are currently doing room-by-room tours at all the facilities with administration, technology, and facilities. It's really going room by room in the building, assessing what its future use is going to be for, making sure that the proper facilities are there, electrical, plumbing, flooring, anything curriculum needed, any technology needs such as touch points or wireless hookups, anything like that, to make sure that we have all our plans for the summer of what needs to get done ready to go, and anything we can start doing, we'll start doing. The traffic study analysis is still expected to be received in January, and I will pass this for the next statement.
Sure. So just correspondence and notifications. We mentioned last meeting the idea that we have a series of letters that we'll be sending out to officially notify different groups of our reorganization as that's happening. None of these letters require a vote, as they are communicating actions that have already been taken. But ultimately, we want to finalize those in January and get those out. So we will share those with you so that you can see those they're complete. Here's a list of just a few of the areas. The Department of Education needs to know how we're organized and where students will be enrolled. The MSBA, which is your Massachusetts School Building Authority, needs to know we're in the midst of doing their survey that they do periodically. I don't know the time frame from the last time we did a survey, but they're going to be conducting virtual and site visits to look at our existing schools. That would be occurring regardless of reorg. That's just part of what they do so that they have the most updated information on Massachusetts schools. Bi-County Collaborative is a collaborative that we rent space to. We need to provide some notifications to them about next year. The Benjamin Franklin Classical Charter School, Holmes Bus Company, the police, fire, and DPW. I want to officially give them notice of how our schools are organized and the addresses and how that will be communicated. And then beyond just those pieces, the community, thinking about the YMCA, elementary house, different childcare facilities, anyone who is directly impacted by schools and locations and whatnot. So we're putting that list together, and that will be a more generalized letter that we can just change the recipient's name to move forward. The other piece was just realtors. I know I'm putting on my former residency hat as the residency keeper for a long time. Dr. Rogers does that now. I think sometimes people buy homes and they listen to what a realtor says on where they'll go to school. If the realtor has misinformation, we have to then unpack that. So I just think it just behooves us to just let them know where students live and which schools they'll be attending, just for clarity, and I just think full transparency. So those will all come to you so you can review those. The piece that I wanted to mention was just for consistency. You've heard tonight, as we've referenced in the master plan, referencing schools as we name them, identify them in these correspondence. One thing that I would like to do for consistency is use the street names as they've been referenced tonight from the school committee members. From the presenting team. So I just would share that to you. The letters will be finalized in January. I am interested to hear that is the one piece of this particular piece of correspondence I would like support from the school committee in doing, but wanted to put that out to you as a group as we move forward, just so that we can wrap up these letters by the January 14th meeting and get them out to the appropriate folks. So I wanted to give as much notice as possible, dating back to November 28th, share it again tonight as part of the reorg update. Between now and January 14th, we will share examples of those letters so you can see, but ultimately want to make sure that we're using a consistent identification for the schools across the board. So finally, Colin, did you hit on?
You can go to budget.
Budget. So we've submitted capital. As I said, that's an iterative process. You can expect follow-up as all the capital requests from other departments are received and that's looked at. And the second piece is just as we look at our preliminary budget we will look to continue to stay on track, on course, as we mentioned, with late January as a targeted date for us to have more preliminary budget figures as we move forward through there. We'll provide another update on January 14th as well, but just wanted to put that as part of the plan. So,
For transportation, the transportation software has been updated with all the new student information, and preliminary information is being developed and gathered. More information about transportation will be ready to share in January or February, more comprehensively. So some of the next steps for reorganization for December into January, sending out the correspondence that was just spoken about, drafting the master schedule, working on staffing assignments, firming up the moving plans after staff assignments are done, looking to do the budget presentation, continue bus route development, obtain the traffic study recommendations, plan summer program operations, school-based committees will begin, and then plan winter, spring staff engagement days, again, after staff placements are completed.
thank you.
Thank you all so much. This was fantastic. I got a lot of questions and comments myself, but I'll kick it to the board first.
Okay, I'm going to go backwards. Thank you first. I think just starting with the last slide in the notifications section there, in an effort to not further confuse people by referring to the schools by one name and then having a change come down the line, I would support putting forward to the committee and perhaps putting it on our next agenda to officially name the schools: Lincoln Street Elementary, Washington Street Elementary, and Franklin Middle School. If we're sending out all of these notifications to folks and then several months down the line changing the names, it's going to create a confusing situation, and I think that might be our easiest way forward for identifying the schools and making families feel comfortable with with knowing where their kids are headed. So I'd put that out as a suggestion for the next meeting, to add something like that on.
Yeah, we can put that out.
You can put that on. You have a policy for naming facilities, FF, I believe, and it's the sole authority of the school committee to name a facility. It speaks to new facilities, but at the end, there is language in the policy that speaks to your ability to edit, change, add, revoke is another verb that's used around that. But I do think having some consistency and having some consensus built around that would be helpful, and it will help us be able to move forward and commit to a direction as we move forward through the rest of the year.
I'm thinking too, that's also going to help the PCCs as they look to form new 501c3s and all that sort of thing as it goes forward as well. So I don't even know the next meeting date, but
January
you do.
14th.
Perfect. Going backwards from there, so Pond Street and ECDC, do you see, with programs staying together at their respective locations, do you see a need to kind of shift in start times or drop-off procedures, because families might have kiddos attending at two different facilities then?
Yes, we have actually had a beginning discussion about that, I would say, and there probably will be a 10-minute difference between start and end times at both locations. That also speaks to transportation, because our students who ride district transportation will not be riding separately to each location. So for example, vans will be carrying students for both locations, so we will need and it's probably 10 minutes we're looking at.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
And, after touring Pond Street today, do you see any changes that might need to happen to that building ahead of the classes moving in there for the fall?
Well, good, you can speak.
I will let Colin do
Yeah, minor things that we will address.
Okay. Okay. sorry, going backwards again, I'm sorry if I missed this in the elementary section. I heard in the middle school section talking about a master schedule. Is discussion like that underway in the elementary section? Specifically thinking too, not just of the rotating schedule, but whether that could impact the start times of the K to 2 versus the 3 to 5, with all the kiddos arriving at the same time.
Yeah, in terms of discussion around scheduling, we are working together as an admin team, but also connecting with, information about, budget constraints, possible budget constraints, and then hopefully being able to, land on a general, skeleton, so to speak, that then hopefully we'll be able to take that and run with the steering committee. So definitely a lot of us are very interested in schedules, like first and foremost. I think if we were to just let everyone choose which subcommittee they wanted to be on, we'd be, pretty loaded on that one. But I think that's important. That's an important, thing to keep in mind with this whole process. So in terms of start times, we don't know yet. I think we're waiting for like traffic study,
Right.
And waiting to look at staffing. Once that's able to land, I think we'll be able to make some decisions on, what we need to do in terms of start time.
I think in terms of scheduling as well, it is that unified arts schedule. It is that 6-day, 5-day. I think it also is looking at our academic blocks, looking at our, we call it flexible, in terms of tier 2 supports and what that looks like, balancing 8 sections of a grade level, lunch and recess. So all of these are questions that will kind of factor into ultimately where we land in terms of schedules.
Thank you. One more. Everybody talked about community engagement within those subcommittees, as one of their primary topics. Do you see this as a place where you will pull in folks from outside of the school buildings, community members or parents, to help build those? You talked about culture, you talked about student engagement in the middle school level, opportunities to bring in students maybe at the older levels and parents at the younger to help create that culture?
I think there were definite wonders, and you're speaking to like naming of a school too. I think that was a question that came up as a wonder just in terms of community engagement and starting cultures and beginning to form communities and identities. That was a wonder on behalf of staff as well. But I think it also, staff members touched upon thinking about PCC in terms of parent engagement and like structures for that. And our meetings happened before that statement was released from our joint PCCs. But it's also looking at traditions, what we want to honor and carry forth. How do we come together and think about what is new and possible, I think in our communities as well. It's about how do we engage families, not only with the facility and the building, but in terms of relationships with teachers and other families, students, and ways to do that. So I think that there are ideas that are coming from staff, but I think it's also important to hear from families in terms of what they're thinking, and that's work that we can do through our school councils and our PCCs, and that will be work that will come as well.
Sounds good. That's all I got.
Cool. So first of all, thank you for this update. This is really informative and timely. I feel like a lot of people are wondering like what's going on. And as I said before, the absence of information, people make things up. So this is a great place to let people know what's happening. So with that being said, what is the plan to provide updates to the public about the work that's being done in these subcommittees beyond what's been done tonight?
Yeah, I think we had talked about like creating some type of predictable cadence, if you will, of communication, whether that's, monthly updates. I'm sure that we'll continue updates, here at this format, but it's something that we've talked a lot about, having some type of almost like a newsletter, something that is, and actually, Mr. Williams, if you want to talk a little bit about it too, it's something that you had talked about at the middle level, is like having some type of newsletter with updates to, so it doesn't always have to be, 10 minutes of a staff meeting, staff facing, but then also community facing to give them some updates, right?
Yeah, I think that will be, with the circumstances of the middle school, where people, all three are going to one school as
Right.
opposed to the, 4 to 5, I was able to send staff a November newsletter of just as much information as I could give them, of concrete information, very similar to what we talked about in terms of kind of the steering committee update. I've spoken with Lizzie Morrison and Becky Motti, and we each send out a monthly newsletter to families, and they are kind enough to allow me to give a blurb in that newsletter of updates. So that will be able to come out from the middle level to get that family and community engagement. I think also looking in terms of when we have that subcommittee of what are ways in which families truly want that information, what's gonna be too much, what's gonna be too little, and trying to find that sweet spot, I think will be really key.
Okay, yeah, and one thing I'd just say is, so it's probably no too much. I think if people are telling you that they're tired of hearing it and they know it and they're sick of it, you've done your job well. So over communicate.
Noted.
Yeah, made them sick of this. Just be like, isn't this done yet? That sort of thing.
I can also add to that too. The district's also creating a digital flip book that will get released through our website too. So it's going to include the entire reorganization process, but there'll be sections designated to committee work where people can flip through on a digital flip book. So that is in development now in another way that will showcase the student.
Okay, cool, thank you. Yeah, and as the communications, the community relations subcommittee chair, I'm a little biased, so just putting it out there. I do have to say I am thoroughly impressed with the update from ECDC. I mean, not to take anything from the other levels, but I was not expecting to get this much progress out of where you've been doing so far. Granted, it's a different pace, and everybody has different phases. I mean, you're not combining. You're just you're expanding versus yes, merging. So I appreciate that, and I'm very excited. I love the approach that you took to solicit feedback from your staff and really come to a consensus on that makes sense. And I love the strategy in terms of placing those older students in the Pond Street location, because it's a nicer transition. I think if you start off with something that's age appropriate at the Oak Street location, and then Pond Street, it's in essence a step up in getting them ready for elementary school. So I think that's a great just ramp up approach. With the expansion though, or the expansion, what does this mean to your capacity? Have you thought about that in terms of? Yeah.
Do you mean like ability to expand more capacity or capacity of our current staffing?
So I'd say where could you go up to? So like I know right now we're busting at the seams. So does this mean with the expansion, the amount of students that we have today is where we're at, or do you see us being able to grow even further?
It does give us some space. At the Oak Street location, we'll be giving back space to Horace Mann, or the middle school, because our 3-year-olds will be coming into the main space of the building. But with the 5 classes moving over to Pond Street, we will free up 3 classrooms upstairs in the Oak Street location. One of those will be used, upstairs we have 5 classrooms. Those are the 5 classrooms that are moving over to Pond. So the 2 3-year-old classrooms will come into the main building, and they'll each have their own room, which they don't now, they share a space. And that will leave 3 remaining classes. We'll also have to move our motor room, which is in the middle school section, up into one of those open spaces. So technically, we'll have 2 open classrooms. What we use those for, will depend on enrollment. There's a possibility that we might have to increase our 3-year-old capacity pretty quickly. At the end of last year, we had 195 students, and our 3-year-olds are just keep coming in from EI. And as you know, those students have to be, as soon as they turn 3, if they qualify for continued services, we take them. So if our class sizes are full at any point, that would give us some capacity to add a 3-year-old classroom if we needed to. The part about Pond Street is yet to be determined, because we're not sure what other entities are going to be using space in that building.
Understood. And then I know capacity, there's two things to it. The building and the actual physical space, and then staffing. Based off of the current staffing, are we able to, do we have a projection of how much we can expand to before we need to start to add staff to then support more students?
So we're in the process right now of looking at caseloads of our related service providers and our special educators in regards to how many hours of service do they currently have on their schedules, to see how many hours will we need at Pond Street, or how many days will we need for the students who are housed there, and then how many hours or days will we need of our staff at Oak Street. At this time, the only possible expected expansion of staff would be if we needed to add the 3-year-old classroom. But otherwise, the current staff that we have can service the number of students that we have projected for the fall.
Gotcha, very great, thank you. And then just last thing, thank you for all the work that you're doing. I mean, this is huge. This is foundational and critical for a successful transition. So the staff that's volunteered to participate and help shape the future is critical. And I know families don't see the work that you're doing, but just on their behalf, thank you for everything, and much appreciated.
Thank you all for not only this update, but all the work that you're doing. It's great to see all this information, but also just for all of us in the community to know that this is a process that's being really just taken very seriously and really just being evaluated and assessed at just a very foundational level. And that's great to see. And so regarding the steering committees, I know like the work's been very early, so maybe it's a little too soon to say this, and you've all mentioned that you're talking about the norms so far, but like have you been able to identify, or through teacher input, what they believe is are their top concerns and priorities throughout this entire process? Or is that something that's still yet to come?
I think through the activity and the structure that we went through together in our second meeting, I think it gave us kind of a lens and a window into what were on their minds. I think that when we talk about that fluidity piece, and I know we're working with some budgetary constraints with steering committee, knowing that we have 25 hours of time, I think we're really trying to maximize and be timely in terms of when we're coming together with some of this work. And I know it's contingent upon other decisions and factors that are being made too. So I do think there's a lot around logistics that came up, a lot around how do we share information and bring forth what we know about our students in terms of that transition, of what does that look like regarding placement, related service caseloads. So I think there will be things that we'll identify as work that happens within that community, of that committee structure. There might be work that's brought to them and react to it and give feedback and input. But I think we have to think about that timeline and pacing in terms of what is actionable, and that's one of our norms, like what is actionable now. And so I think we have to take this information, sift through it, and kind of lay that out in a timeline too, in terms of what that looks like and when we can start moving forward. Some of the specifics related to that work.
Yeah, I would just add that a lot of what's been talked about thus far, a lot of it's student-centered, right? So whether it's discussion about community building or schedules, it really comes back to how are the kids going to be impacted, and how are we going to be able to make decisions that are developmentally appropriate for the students, right? So there's maybe opportunities now to make some decisions in a K-1-2 building that are really best for 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, as opposed to asking them to adjust to, you know, what's good for 4th and 5th graders, right? And the impacts of MCAS and, you know, on an entire building. So I would say that a theme thus far has really been around impact on students, because like everything that's really part of these subcommittees circles back to either how can I as a staff member do my job, how can I be set up for success so that students are set up for success, either, you know, thinking about the community, staffing, you know, the logistics, operations and such. So that's certainly been a theme.
I think we talked about macro level and micro level. And what are we high level looking at now, and then kind of funneling down to get more specific with those certain subcommittees and
Right.
target areas. So I think that's the work that we will dig into and that we have ahead of us.
Yeah, I think very similar themes at the middle level that we're hearing. I think we have currently, you know, 3 middle schools who are very proud of how they're able to meet the needs of kids. And I think that at the end of the day is they want to make sure that what we're doing is going to help, you know, make sure that there is a safe, welcoming learning environment for the students when they walk through those doors in 25, 26. And I think that there's a level of feeling of urgency of, yes, like let's do this. Because I think that, again, there's a lot of pride, and there should be a lot of pride in the practices that are in all 3 schools, and just want to make sure that that Franklin Middle School has the best of all 3.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing that. And I think it's very valuable for us as a community to know that all this input and all these perspectives are being taken into consideration, and that all this is being done in a very just thoughtful, methodical manner, really, and that it's a product of this process that all these things being taken into consideration will ultimately translate into the best possible educational experience that we can offer throughout it all. So thank you for that. And then kind of piggyback on some of my colleagues' CCDC questions, and I love how, you know, you're focusing on the expansion and emphasizing one school just in 2 locations, and I think that's makes a lot of sense with having the older students in a facility that is going to, you know, be reflecting an elementary school that they'll be in the subsequent year. But also with regards to enrollment, are the numbers roughly evenly distributed with how this is going to be divided up, and was that also a factor that was taken into consideration?
Yes, it actually, if we were at capacity in our classes that are going to be at Pond Street, there'll be approximately 75 students, so 15 students in 5 classes. And our classes right now, currently, of those, that group of students is approximately 70. So that number, and then approximately, with full classes, probably about 80 or 85 at Oak Street. So relatively evenly split.
Yeah, no, it's
More classes at Oak Street, but some of those classes being substantially separate have less students. So that kind of offset a full class of 15 students.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it seems almost as even as you can get. So yeah, it's very, very well planned and good use of resources.
Thank you.
And then also to your point of really having a singular school culture, will there be times for all the staff to come together and kind of just like debrief each other and share ideas in order to just very intentionally maintain that singular school culture? Like how will you be putting that into practice?
So it's interesting because the question that was asked about what's one of the biggest things that are on people's minds that you asked of my colleagues, like that is one of the single most things that the staff is talking about. Like how are we going to continue to be, one staff? And since I've joined the team, we've been doing some real intentional work around culture and climate at the ECDC just because of the need for it. And we are very intentionally continuing that work and using that work in regards to how is it going to, what are our values? What do we value as a team, and how that's not going to change if we're in 2 different locations? And how is that going to translate into, moving forward with our school culture and climate? And we will be, because we will now have, this is another benefit of having the 2 locations, is have larger spaces available to us being at Pond Street, which we do not at the ECDC. When we have our staff meetings now, we use the middle school art room because that's the closest big space for us. So I do predict that some of our meetings will most likely be at the Pond Street location because we will have the space to be able to do that. And it's important that we don't automatically say, well, let's just meet virtually because we're in 2 locations. Like, we have to be intentional. The staff has talked a lot about just social opportunities, that are going to bring us together as a team. We have some things going on right now called Wellness Wednesdays, where staff plan activities on Wednesday afternoons that are not staff meeting days. So like we've had walks, like one Wednesday a month, teams of people have gotten together and gone for walks. And those are like intentional things. It's going to be really important for us to concentrate on intentional in regards to the culture and the climate of the school.
Excellent, thank you for sharing that. And again, I think it's wonderful for all of us to know, for the community to know that these are things that are being very thoughtfully and intentionally considered and really baked into this whole process. And I think it speaks very highly of the work that all of you are doing and your teams are doing to create this culture that we have and maintain it and ensure that it's going to be thriving moving forward. So thank you all again.
Thank you, each of you. It's a great presentation. You just gave us a lot of work to discuss during the holiday season. Regarding the ECDC, can you please confirm about the STAR program? You want to Pond Street versus Oak Street. Which one goes where? How many classes goes where? I'm just talking about exclusive STAR program.
Sure, the STAR program currently has 3 classrooms. They have 5 or 6 students in them currently, their enrollment, and they will be located at the Oak Street location with their 2 partner classrooms, which are classrooms that have 15 typically developing students who are their inclusion and integration partners. So those classrooms will be at the Oak Street location.
Oak Street. Nothing to do with the Pond Street.
No.
Thank you. And another one is regarding the bus transportation and traffic study. I'm very much concerned about that. This is one of the very important piece among parents. We don't want any surprises. Even the traffic studies during the holiday season versus working day season is totally different. So we want you to keep in mind to go back with them and talk several times to give the right block for every month.
Yeah, we've recently been in touch with them too, as far as just little bits and pieces that they've needed just to complete their study. So we know it's in the final stages, and like I said, we expect to receive it in January.
In January, if it comes to January, they study the traffic during the holiday season, right?
They've been conducting the study since the fall, and then we expect the finalized report in January. So they've been studying it all along, collecting data as school has been in session through the fall months and winter months.
That's all, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And O'Sullivan?
Hi. So thank you, everyone. This is really, really helpful and informative. Man, you guys are managing change at like a really high level here. So it sounds like you're really working. I get there's so much emphasis. This is probably not politically savvy to say, but there's so much emphasis with the admin team to loop in the parents and make sure that the parents are happy and the parents, are in the loop. And I do like that you're kind of taking a minute to just like check in thoroughly with the teachers, because I just know from even in the private sector, like if your workforce is happy, then your customers are happy. And because, you know, it all trickles down. So like happy teachers means happy kids means happy parents. So, thank you. So, I'm excited because I do think that like you're gonna get the best of each school. Like, you know, it's kind of like you bring out like, this is the event that the parents in the community loved. So now Oak kids get to do it, or, you know, Parmenter kids get to do it. It's like, it's great that this is happening because, you know, within each school, there were sort of like envy culture also. So now it's like, we're going to get the best of everything. As far as middle school, and this is where I get like the most feedback from like the residents that I sort of hang with because my kids are middle school age. I know it's fast moving, and I appreciate that you say that you're just trying to be realistic about actionable things. So I don't want to put more on your plate. So I'm cautioning, but I have to say there's some things with the middle school that have been hit hard by Franklin's town budget, obviously. And I believe that Franklin's town budget right now is predicted to be between like $5 and $6 million, the deficit that we're going into next year. So we do expect that we're gonna try to get the council, and I have pretty positive feedback from council members that they will put it back out to the community again. And, you know, Lucas and you all worked so hard last year doing like the tale of four budgets. But in middle school, especially just because, you know, the consolidation and everything, what I hear from parents is that Franklin has sort of fallen behind as far as core curriculum. Like the arts, they want to present what they feel, you know, they can get support for, like arts as a core curriculum, and languages. You know, I know languages have been hit hard, and I know that, you know, you can only deal with what's in front of you right now, and you have to be pragmatic and you have to be practical. One thing I think and expect is that when it comes time to ask the community next year for an override during the spring, I suspect they will put something out there saying, you know, this is level budget, you know, 5 million, 6 million, whatever the numbers come out to in January, this is going to be level service. If you want to restore any of the things that, you know, we maybe have cut, or if you want like level service plus, maybe sorry, my husband's sneezing in the background. If level plus would look a little like a menu, like some communities do this. I know Needham has done it a lot. I've talked to some of the counselors who know. They'll say like, okay, you know, X amount for level services, but you know, if we want to, maybe, I know we got rid of Latin, like if we want to bring sign language in as a core curriculum, it's going to be X amount of dollars. And I'm just throwing some random thing out there because a lot of parents are talking about foreign languages, or, you know, less unstructured time. And I know this has all been a product of budget. So maybe not for the tale of four budgets, but maybe like, you know, a couple things that you guys think we should prioritize that won't be allowed in the level sort of ask. And there are some things in the air, you know, with negotiations and whatnot, but I just want to put that out there that, you know, I looked at the steering committees and I didn't see a lot of arts and like I didn't see any languages, and I was hoping it would go maybe an opportunity to grow, which sounds ludicrous, I'm sure, to you guys, as we just had our budget annihilated last year. But I do think we have more support going into it this year. I think we have more leadership and elected leaders in town stepping up this year. So I just, I think that at the end of the day, it's gonna come out with a question, or, you know, I'm advocating for us to say, hey, this is level service, and then have the community decide what we want our schools to look like and what's adequate. So I guess that's just like a little bit of feedback, but I hope I didn't just create more work. But I think Lucas already knows this anyway. So
I'm happy to respond on behalf of the team. I think what I heard Mr. Williams and I heard the elementary say, and if you looked at the slide deck, you'll see the members of the committee include the directors of fine arts, or music and fine arts, in the steering committee, for one. The second piece is, I think, being thoughtful. The master schedule incorporates not just academics, but all of your specials in unified arts. Mr. Williams gave an example at the middle level around how right now the music program is in the same block as the tiered intervention, as in the same block as special education services, additional services. So just as if you think about those competing interests in one hour of time, he was pretty intentional about how do we look at that differently and how do we separate those in some way, right? And that's where separation is okay, Ms. Taylor. I'm saying it in the context of trying to break out those programs. But I think what I would say is, even adding when you do a master schedule, the one thing that also needs to be really thoughtfully done is look at, you can't just add an additional component into it if you haven't figured out how it fits into the full system. So I think they're putting their best foot forward as they go through this process to try to land it and advocate up front for, hey, if we want to have a master schedule that's sustainable and will carry us through and meets multiple areas of need, then this is what it looks like and this is what it will need to be. And I think they have been an advocate for that. So I just wanted to say, your understanding where you're coming from, but also recognizing they're doing that work now and really trying to take into consideration all those components so that they put forth the best schedule possible.
Sure. And I know this isn't like a budget talk, so you know me. I'm
Yep.
laser focused. So but thank you. You guys this is so thorough. This is such good work. I hope I didn't come across that. I don't think that at all. I appreciate you guys. I know you guys are working really, really hard, like above and beyond. So
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all. Thanks.
It really, when Lucas had kind of teed this up and said how, it's typically kind of been, Lucas and Colin presenting on a lot of this, and now it's getting expanded out. I was really excited. And then you guys all just knocked it out of the park. It's fantastic to hear about all the work that's going on. Nothing taken away from Director of Operations and the Superintendent of Schools, but just to know that so many of these big decisions aren't being kind of decided on in a vacuum. And there's so many participants. And when you mentioned that the committee members almost were acting as liaisons and soliciting out, had 95 responses back from outside the sort of steering committee, was absolutely fantastic. I kind of heard, like my old colleague Camille Bernstein, she would always talk about like the teacher voice and teacher choice, and to be able to make sure that you're constantly pulling in everybody that this is impacting was terrific. And then also with the ECDC, I know it's been said before, but just the idea of having that pre-K1 be like the elementary light over at the Pond Street location love that idea. Absolutely love that idea. I think it's really going to create so many more opportunities. And with that too, when just talking about more opportunities and like the expansion of ECDC, I remember when we first kind of got on the committee when Dr. Sarah Hearn was here, like even back then, ECDC was busting at the seams, and it was constantly kind of like, what are we going to do? How are we going to be able to solve this? So to now hear about these decisions that are happening, that that relief is in sight, is great. And just for those in the community, we're kind of looking at like the dollars and cents with the ECDC expansion. I remember at one point at some time, it really kind of talked about the benefits of ECDC. If I kind of kick that back out to you, what are the benefits of being able to identify and have some of these kiddos in-house before they hit kindergarten versus the difficult, or maybe just different challenges if they kind of just show up on day one at kindergarten?
I think, first of all, you have a team that is unbelievably dedicated to meeting the needs of our littlest learners, as I like to call them. All of the teachers at the ECDC, classroom teachers, are duly certified. They're special education teachers as well as regular education, early childhood educators. So students who are in their classes have the opportunity to be in an environment where they have teachers who are, experts in both at the same time. The teachers may say that that's a challenge, because it is, but the team at the ECDC does this so well. So when we have students who come to us, either from early intervention, or they come into us from what's called the Child Find Screen, a parent calls and wants their student, evaluated, or area preschools come and say, could you help us out with a student? This gives us the opportunity to give students what they need before they move on to the elementary school. Like, it's foundational. Someone used the word foundational. And I think that that's one of the biggest pieces of having a public preschool that is integrated and gives special education students an opportunity to learn side by side with their peers in the same classes at the same time by very, very talented teachers. So that's kind of like the first opportunity. And then it gives us the opportunity for transition to kindergarten and to the elementary schools to have that open dialogue around, here are our students who are coming to you. They're not just coming to you from, from somewhere in the community that we don't have this open dialogue about. So the heads up and the open communication between the ECDC and the elementary schools helps all of us. It helps our students be ready to, go on, but it also helps the elementary schools be ready for them at the same time. Whereas kids who come from other area preschools, that open communication isn't as fluid as it is with us. So I would say those are kind of the two main pieces of having our students right here with us before they go off to the elementaries.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you so much.
You're
because
welcome.
I know, so many times, like, we often kind of talk about like that investment, that early, investment, and how it's really going to pay dividends the next, 12 years of 13 years of their career here at Franklin High or Franklin Public. And so it's fantastic to hear about that, to hear all the great benefits that are coming from there, and really that there's that opportunity now for growth that just wasn't there because you use up literally every square foot of those buildings. And then for the superintendent, one quick thing, when you had mentioned kind of contacting different town departments, maybe I missed this, but if we could just make sure that Parks and Rec as well.
Yes, the recreation department.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
I don't know if they were on the,
They're on our list.
they're on our list,
They're
they
on-
may not have made the
They
slide.
didn't make the slide.
Terrific. All right, I know, that's gonna be,
There's
great when that.
All departments
Are getting
will
notified.
receive it.
All right, perfect. Really, thank you so much. This was fantastic. Greatly appreciate all the work that's going into this.
Thank you.
Mr. Callahan, if I could just say too, these folks are leading today and planning for tomorrow. So I just think that, thinking about, I often put my plugs out there for just grace within the community, and when folks are, we have people who are leading and trying to lead today's kids and make the best experience we can for children today. And these principals that we're just presenting are also planning pretty in-depth and thoroughly for tomorrow, and it's basically like working two different schools at the same time while you're planning. So just wanted to put that out there as they're here, and I want to thank them all. Mr. Hendrickson is here with them as well, the whole group over there, and I wanted to, Ms. Wasik is not here tonight, but she will be joining them for future presentations, and they've all worked together very closely to make the progress they've made. Okay. Thank you
so much.
If you want to go, you can head on out.
Just like the pledge students.
Yes.
Go do our homework.
Next time we'll have an embarrassing blurb to read about each of you too. All right, up next, discussion action items, starting with the Japan 2016 field trip request.
Okay, so I'm excited to invite up folks. We have Vicki Bama and Emily Rossborough and Jennifer Curley and Mary Bolero, all who are teachers at Franklin High School. They're going to be doing a joint presentation. So the discussion action item A and B are for the trips that are slated for request and approval from you for next year. And as you already said, Mr. Callahan, Japan 2026 and Hawaii 2026. So without further ado, they're going to be presenting as a team and hitting on each of their topics. And then I'd ask that you just take action on those items and request for approval.
All right, thank you all very much.
Hello, thanks for having us. So we're presenting Japan and Hawaii. Japan would be the February 2026 and Hawaii for April 2026. So I'm Emily Rosbrough and...
Hi, I'm Vicki Bama. I've been working at Franklin for 12 plus years. This will be my second EF trip, and I'm an avid traveler myself.
And this is my first EF trip, but I lead the DECA trips. So this would be my first international trip with the students. And then we have,
I'm Jennifer Curling, science teacher in science department, head of high school, and this will be my first EF trip, but I have traveled a lot, looked abroad extensively, done field trips with students.
And I'm Mary Bolero, science teacher at the high school. I led the Belize trip in 2024, so this will be my second EF tour, and it would be my actually 30th state visited. So again, avid traveler, excited for this potential opportunity.
So in terms of our agenda, the first couple agenda points that we have, this would be our 4th year that we've done EF tours. The first one is talking a little bit about the benefits of travel for our students. The second is talking about EF as a company. And then we get into a little bit more about our trip-specific information. Due to time and also respecting sort of the committee, we weren't sure if you would like to hear again about travel and EF. Yes? All right. So in terms of the benefits of travel, we obviously love educating our students, but there's only so much you can do in a classroom space. Being able to take our students out into the real world and teach them problem-solving skills, communication, other cultures is something that's an invaluable experience to be able to offer to our students. EF is an educational travel tour in the sense that they design these experiences for our students to be able to give them in a limited period of time during vacations, sort of that opportunity outside of the classroom, something we would love to support in terms of their growth. It also aligns with our portrait of a graduate that we have for our Franklin High School students. We want them to be problem solvers, we want them to communicate, and again, this creates that authentic space for us to be able to support them in growing in some of these very important ways. Sort of reiterating, so this is, again, I'm from EF, sort of some of the key talking points we have, so that growth mindset, the idea that everyone who's ever traveled in their entire lives knows that you're gonna come across problems, it's an inherent part of it. So being able to sort of figure out in that moment, how do I overcome this obstacle, sort of living that growth mindset that we talk about, as well as developing as a person, taking action, and also looking at the impact of sort of being in other cultures, and that it has on you personally, as well as your role as a global citizen.
All right, and so why EF? Again, I think pre-COVID, this district had been sending students through EF on various tours, but this would be the 4th year post-COVID using EF. They take care of everything, right? So the all-in price that we have, they take care of the flights, they take care of the hotels, food, things like that. They have safety measures in place everywhere we go. 24/7, they're there if we need anything. I will say when I did my training tour in Berlin, there was like a physical emergency. Somebody fell, broke their arm in the middle of Berlin. Our tour director was on it immediately, like taking the steps to make sure that that person was safe and getting them to where they needed to go. So our tour director is amazingly trained in like doing those emergency situations. So it's a great example to kind of see that in action. You can go to the next slide. Sure. Yeah. We work directly with the EF personnel. Because our tour is domestic, we work with a different group. It's called EF Explore America, where they're working with EF International. But it's all structured the same. So we would be working with our tour directors when we're on site, on the ground, but we have a contact at EF to work and make our plans moving forward before we leave. Again, we have local support on the ground and anywhere we go. Health standards, 24/7 support. Our tour director stays with us, stays in the hotels with us. There is, security at all the hotels that you go to. So there's even that safety measure at all the hotels as well. The next one. Travel protection, so baked into the price is the $119 for us. I think you guys said it was $190 for the Japan trip, which is just the travel protection plan. If anything needs to be rebooked or anything like that, that would be covered. Also with that, again, if anything ever happens on tour, like I said, the person who got injured on my training trip, EF took care of all of their things, like having to stay extra nights and rebooking a flight, so they take care of all of that. The parents have an opportunity to pay a little bit more for an extra plan, just in case there's other reasons why they might need to cancel late or anything like that, but that's optional. And that's just the standard cancellation policy, which we'll make sure we put in any of the communication to parents so that they know what they are buying into.
And that policy is for both international and national tours.
And again, through EF, there's other safety measures like liabilities, and they also do background checks. I know that we plan to have all chaperones be Franklin High School staff, whether it's teachers, guidance counselors, things like that. So we're all Corey Storied anyways, but EF does their own background checks on any adult who's on tour. And again, peace of mind, once we sign up with them, they take care of everything. They have COVID measures like making sure they clean the buses and everything like that, and anything that they need to take care of to keep us safe. Was this all something? Yes. Again, everything we get, itinerary, logistics, payment and protection, so flexible payment options, so families could do bi-weekly payments, monthly payments, or pay in full, so they can budget however they want. Each student gets like a GoFundMe fundraising page through EF, so they can do their own fundraising to bring down their cost. They have, the travel protection is included, safety and support, personal learning. They could get high school credits if they wanted to, help with the college essay because of their experiences, all through EF.
As Mary was saying, we're always concerned about accessibility for all students. So EF does offer scholarships for students in addition to the GoFundMe pages, in addition to, we're planning so far out that the payment plans we're hoping would be a lot lower for families if they would like to take advantage of the payment plan. We're thinking about accommodations. I personally am a special educator, and
So am I.
also, along with general educators, and we're hoping to work with our administration and set up people in place for students of all abilities that want to come, so we're trying to align student need with chaperones. And anyone is able to join for the classes 2026, 27, and 28 graduating classes, as long as they're in good behavioral standing. We again work with our administration team to look at all the students who have applied and make sure that they are within the standards for behavior.
So we are trying to go to Japan. That is what we are proposing right now for our international trip for February. Our travel dates are the February vacation. There is a little bit of flexibility in the travel dates. So it is a 9-day tour, but they tell us that the earliest we'll leave is the 13th and the latest we'll come home is the 22nd. So that depends on flights and things like that. And those dates will be nailed down in, I don't know, month or so. Once we start planning and getting students registered, that's when EF will book all of the flights.
It all depends on their flight availability, the amount
Right.
of students we have, and the flight availability for those dates.
So we're looking at Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Osaka. Those are the 3 places that we're going to be visiting. This is sort of just a bullet of what we're looking to do, visiting temples, tea ceremonies, doing a lot of cultural things. With the 20th century Japan, we're looking at both end of World War II and then into the technological age. So it's a like mesh of all of those things. So the students will get to experience old and new, not just old, which I know a lot of people are going to Japan for that old feel. We wanted to mix and give students an opportunity for that new feel as well, because that is what we're hearing a lot. Students they want to experience that big technology boom piece of Japan. We're including, this is what EF basically includes, but it's the round trip airfare, the hotel stays, regional menus, we get the transportation, the tour director, local guides, we have the sightseeing and the entrances all taken care of. And then the additional expenses would be passports, baggage fees, and things like that, snacks and anything they want to purchase outside for souvenirs.
And some lunches.
Yeah, and there are some lunches. We did work really hard for Japan to pack it pretty densely so that students don't have a ton of downtime. We wanted to make sure that they were getting a really great experience. So we did book a couple of extra things, including the traditional tea ceremony. And this is what we're looking at for price right now, $5,419. with that global protection plan with the extended $190, and then that's the pre-book only, the $50 for the traditional tea ceremony. Now, all of this is included in that price. If parents do register the first night, they do get an extra $200 off of that price on top of it if they're willing to go for the trip on our planned parent meeting.
And then Mary and myself, we are proposing the Hawaii trip for April 2026. Same thing, so ours would be an 8-day tour, and the window for us for EF booking that we wouldn't know until a couple months before we actually leave would be Thursday, April 16th to that Tuesday, April 21st. In terms of our itinerary, so one of the things when we were looking at trips is we were looking at what have we not done, and we haven't done a domestic trip. And so we looked at kind of where could you travel domestically that might offer students who don't have passports, don't have opportunities to travel, or maybe don't have families that would be comfortable with international travel, someplace where they can still experience something very different. And you can't get much different than Hawaii from where we currently are. And the itinerary, you'll notice, is also a broad swath in terms of having cultural experiences. So there's Polynesian experiences, they'll get a lot of cultural elements and understand a little bit about sort of what it's like, kind of like there for Native Hawaiians, as well as historical. So there'll be a visit to Pearl Harbor as well, which they'll get an opportunity to go there, as well as a lot of natural elements as well. So there's kind of noted more different and interesting topography that you can get in the U.S., arguably, than being able to go and look at sort of the volcanoes and also the observatory that they have out there. And in terms of what's included, so it's many of the same things. So basically the joy of EF is that everything's packaged within that single price that you pay for. One of the differences that you'll see that's between the international and domestic travel is that all gratuities are also included in domestic travel. So there's a little bit more sort of baked into that price when you pay for it. It's a little more all-inclusive.
So what the students or families would be responsible for, any extra would be any extra baggage fees, that would be check bags. Lunches and snacks, spending money, and again, because it is a US state, they won't need passports. Any student who's 18 plus would make sure they need a real ID. So whether it's a regular license or if they don't have a license, making sure they get something like that. And then this would be our price. The total all-in is $5,250. That is the night of our parent meeting, which we're hoping to do on Monday next week.
Mm-hmm.
There is that night, there is a $150 discount, so all in it would be $5,400 if any families signed up after that. But again, up there's the bi-weekly payments. That would be if they signed up next week and they start paying. Yeah, and so that's kind of it. If you have any questions for us, again, we're, me and Jen, Mary and Jen are the Hawaii tour, and Vicki and Emily are the June.
Terrific, thank you very much. Open the floor, questions, comments from the committee?
First of all, we are very jealous about Jennifer. She visited 25 plus countries. And yeah, the only question I have is regarding EF, where is this EF located at?
One of their hubs is in Boston, one of their main hubs, but they have hubs all over the world. So wherever we are, they have a hub in any location that we are, that they can access all of their personnel.
How many students in the per batch you were expecting?
That we're not sure about.
So
It
we,
can range.
yeah, a full bus is 32 students for Japan. What's your?
Our
40.
hope is 35 to 40 could be.
Yeah.
We're about the same.
We're about the same.
I did the Greece tour last year. I was a chaperone. It's a lot taking a big group internationally with 2 buses. It was a lot of moving parts. So I think Emily and I would prefer to keep it more to.
Yeah, that's 32.
Is there any special reason to choose Japan?
We've heard a lot of student interest for Japan. A
Yep.
lot of students are very interested in it. It's also a culture that is huge on respect. We've been reading a lot about it. Even wearing a heavily scented body lotion is not appropriate in Japan because it might offend somebody else. So we really like that aspect of respect, in addition to the students really seem to be excited by it.
Yeah, we were trying to find something different, so we wanted to do Asia. And then we were trying to find something that was also really popular with students. So we merged both of those ideas and came up with Japan.
Yeah, that's all. My last question is, it's a long flight. You say around
Yes.
14 hours there flight.
Yes.
hopefully the parents are aware of all the complications during the flight times.
We will absolutely be reminding parents of flight times when we have our parent meeting.
So great trip, it's really great to really appreciate it for you guys.
It's exciting. We're hoping, it's a trip that would be hard for a family to take. It would be so expensive, so we're hoping that it gives students an opportunity, if they can, for graduations, birthdays,
Right.
Christmas, they can ask for money towards, maybe have a summer job to earn money towards.
Thank you.
Thank you all for this presentation and just giving all this information on, these trips and all that the tourists have to offer. And I know, a few of us have been here for a couple of years. We've heard a number of these presentations in terms of what EF has to offer. And it's always impressive, like the packages they put together. It really is something else. And I think it's wonderful that we can offer these opportunities to our students to travel abroad and see different parts of the world and different cultures that they wouldn't otherwise experience, because it's always very enriching to do so. No questions, but I would just, similar to what we've done in the past trips, encourage you all to see if you can think of creative ways to help students out with fundraising who may otherwise not be able to afford it and not have accessibility to. I know we do have the scholarship, but if there's other ways that you can help and really promote fundraising opportunities to the school community or the broader community, we would really appreciate that. So thank you.
So as my colleague had said, yes, we've been here quite some time, at least the three of us, and we've seen many, many trips. I think that the big thing that instills trust in this is that we haven't heard anything bad that has come out of this so far. We've had a lot of we've had a lot of great trips, and it's just a great way to allow the students to experience other cultures and see something outside of Franklin that may not have been accessible, as you had said, just from a family. Because I have 2 broke friends that I have to pay for whenever I go on trips. So one thing I think we just need to consider, and to be the Debbie Downer, unfortunately, just the situation with the district, though, right? Like we're doing these great things that cost money, but at the same time, from a financial and budgetary situation, it doesn't jive, like outward in. Like if somebody from another community was like, oh, they're going to Japan, but they can't get a librarian or whatever we're lacking. I think it's just very conflicting. So I think just something to be mindful of, and at least want the community to know, we will support this, and this is an individual family, but I think this just widens the gap of haves and have-nots, because now we have, we'll say, 64, 70 students that have this experience, and then others that can't afford it in the district can't provide other things for us. So how do we add some equity? So that's all. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Sounds incredible. Thank you.
And O'Sullivan?
I was curious what the policies are around selecting who gets into the lottery. Like, I know you said, like, you do, like, an admin check with the behaviors and things like that. So, do we get to throw the kids doing the best work and
So everybody
They
is
get-
eligible. It's based on behavioral reports. So a student who has a lot of write-ups or behavioral issues, then they may not qualify for the trip, but everybody else would qualify for the trip. And if we would not say, oh, we're not gonna take this one student because it's over our limit. We would just keep working to get more and more students to try to attend the trip.
And it's not a lottery, so
No.
when we do the parent night next week, at the end of the presentation, we'll put up the QR codes for, hey, you wanna register, they'll be put on a wait list, and then we'll work with administration to go through that wait list. First person at the top, yes or no, great,
Right.
they're enrolled. So it's whoever gets in first, so first come,
Okay.
first serve. And we'll just work with administration to make sure that they're approving students from the top of the list down.
Okay, thanks, yeah.
Like buying concerts.
No. This is just, this is great. I mean, this is fantastic. I couldn't get to, like, the price of it's amazing. I want to go. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity. So, that's all I've got.
Yeah, really, thank you all so much. I'm always so impressed when you're willing to kind of have like the courage to take on and get us out. But then when you put down that karaoke is part of the itinerary.
Yes, it is.
Good luck. And I will, these are great opportunities. I love like as my colleague mentioned, as you mentioned as well, kind of talking about, it might not be an opportunity where like the entire family can kind of go and travel abroad or to Hawaii themselves, but to be able to kind of give that one kid of the experience is terrific and a nice way to frame it. And I know that we have kind of spoken in the past, for a lot of times just about when each of these conversations come up, about like maybe like a more local domestic one that might have like the costs a little bit lower. Has there been much interest in something like that, like a long-term DC trip or a trip?
We haven't done a domestic yet, so I'm not sure,
Okay.
I guess we'll see.
And our families, just from talking to the students, they travel extensively, a lot of our students inside, especially on the East Coast, up and down, they really do. We always just chat, oh, how was your break? Did you go anywhere? And they do travel quite a bit, I have to say. And I don't know if you remember, last year we proposed the Costa Rica trip, and we didn't have enough student interest for that. We only had 7 students apply, which wasn't enough interest, so we canceled the trip. So it really does kind of matter what they're thinking, because they are selective about where they would like to go and when they would like to go.
Okay. No, thank you very much. That's
Yeah,
very.
I mean, we could always, it is definitely something to think about, I think.
But like I said, it would be terrific, but also if the interest isn't there, the interest isn't there.
Right.
So, no, that's great. Really good luck with Japan and the karaoke though. Something to think about that week.
Just through the chair, the 8th grade has run a trip more recently to the Grand Canyon as a culminating activity across all 3 middle schools, as we move forward through reorg under one roof. I don't anticipate that changing, but it will take having dedicated staff members who are interested to lead a trip like that. That's not part of our program where we force people to do these things. It's really on a volunteer basis by interested staff like you see today. The second piece I'd mention, I think you hit on the East Coast. The trips, I think the mission of EF has been mainly around providing broader travel where folks wouldn't, or students wouldn't necessarily have an opportunity to do so. So I think their aim is to move beyond just the Eastern Seaboard and whatnot. It does not preclude, and I think that's a good point. You also would need a staff member interested to look at different travel, but it's certainly not out of the realm. And the last thing I'll mention is Dr. Weber, the high school principal, and I met with EF because we have been consistently putting trips out there. And if you think about it from a student perspective, as you go through high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you may say, hey, listen, I would like to go to the Greece trip, but you know what, it's not in the cards right now, but I know that I want to do a trip, and if Franklin's going to offer one the next year, I don't even know what I'm going to, but I'm starting to put some money away, because I know freshman year, by the time I'm ready, I want to be eligible for that type of trip. So that's part of it. We have been in discussions about just becoming we're a program. EF does programs at specific high schools where they help you with the long-term planning and promotion to start to solidify that so that you can say, hey, we don't know what 2027 is, but our intention and our goal, it's not a promise, is to look at having a trip during the February and April break so that as parents and families start to move through, when you hit a Panther Pride night, if we have a bit of a program, we can put that out to folks and say, look, we don't know what it will be, but here you can look at the website and see past trips, what they've cost, where students have gone, so that we can start to build it. And if we're an EF Tour affiliation or a program, a high school program, which exists in Massachusetts, that's the direction we want to move. So I think just having some long-range planning is really beneficial to these trips, and having a bit of a sequence so that when staff members are interested, if they go back to the hub, we don't get multiple staff members proposing the same location, or we have a bit of a rhythm on chaperones and who's going to be leading, so that we have a bit of a rotation where we're spreading out the opportunities for staff members too, so it's not the same staff every year. So these are all the things that we have been discussing behind the scenes, but just based on your question, I thought it was the appropriate time to share more.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks for kind of pulling back that curtain. Thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much. Really, thank you all for the presentation and for the volunteering and all the work that's gone into this as well.
Can I ask one last question? The date is the Japan Info Night on Tuesday and, no.
They're all together on Monday.
On Monday? Okay, and what time?
7 o'clock.
Okay, 7 o'clock on Monday in the,
Cafeteria.
okay, is that going to be, if approved, you'll put that out? Okay,
Yes, we,
all right.
Yes,
All right.
posters at the ready.
we got approved.
We
Got it.
thought instead of competing with each other, we would just. make
Work
a team,
together.
Right,
Yeah.
and then students have the opportunity to see both trips instead of I signed up for one, oh, I really wanted to go on that one. So we're
Smart.
trying to be
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
organized, thoughtful, transparent about things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now we'll have those two come up
Okay.
for a vote.
I recommend approval of the requests of Vicky Bama and Emily Rossborough to take students to Japan from approximately February 13th to the 22nd in 2026 as detailed.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the Japan 2026 field trip request as detailed.
Second?
Second.
All right, questions, discussions? Seeing none, roll call vote, Gallagher,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Sonapoli,
Yes.
O'Sullivan,
Yes.
and Callahan, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, one more. One more, you don't know where this is going. All right.
Sorry, Steve.
They really liked Japan, I don't know about Hawaii. Okay. I recommend approval of the requests of Jennifer Curley and Mary Bolero to take students to Hawaii from approximately April 16th to April 22nd, 2026 as detailed.
All right, is there a motion?
I move to approve the request for the Hawaii 2026 field trip as detailed.
Second?
Second.
Discussions, questions? All right, Gallagher,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Sonapoli,
Yes.
O'Sullivan,
Yes.
Callahan, yes.
Congratulations, thank you.
so much.
And you learned all about redistricting when you were away. Okay. Next up, policies for second read and adoption. I recommend adoption of the following policies as discussed. ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. ACA-R, non-discrimination on the basis of sex under Title IX, including sex-based harassment.
All right, entertain a motion.
Move to adopt policies ACA and ACAR as discussed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? All right, Gallagher,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Sonapoli,
Yes.
O'Sullivan,
Yes.
and Callahan, yes.
Thank you.
All right, discussion only items, none at this time. So, information matters. Superintendent evaluation,
No updates at this time.
what about for budget?
Budget, yes, we'll be meeting at 6 a.m. on December 25th. Oh, no, just kidding.
Scrooge.
Humbug. No, but we will be having a joint budget subcommittee meeting next Tuesday. Hey, there you go, keep on your toes. Next Tuesday in the council chambers at 7 p.m.
I was writing the date down.
Got me
So-
at 6 a.m. I'm like, huh?
So, joint budget next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday,
All right,
correct.
excellent. Let's see, policy, I'll, kind of give a quick update here, if that's right with you, O'Sullivan?
Please do.
All right, so we just met earlier this evening, and a lot of the policies that we've been addressing and tackling really kind of been guided by Desi's request. And so I think this kind of shored up the last couple that Desi had recommended that we clean up and readjust. And so there'll be on the January 14th meeting, you'll see a couple more policies, 3 of them coming up for a first read. All right, community relations.
Community relations, so last month we had talked about reestablishing the legislative forum. We had reached out to the legislators, both State Rep Jeff Roy and State Senator Becca Rausch, and both had agreed to participating. We do have a date set for February 24th. It will be at the Franklin High School in the lecture hall. We're going to be working through logistics, but our next meeting, which is on the 17th, which is next Tuesday, we'll talk through logistics of the legislative forum. We'll talk about the newsletter, which actually this past newsletter has gone out. Thanks, Erin, for putting that together in terms of formatting and whatnot. And then we'll talk about just any other communications that we'll be sending out. So,
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, thanks to our Rep. Roy and Senator Bouch too. Excited to have that legislative forum, it's fantastic. So thanks for organizing that committee. And what about joint PCC?
Joint PCC, we have not met since last month. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 17th.
Okay.
So hopefully get an update from the PCCs on what they've been meeting on since the last time.
Terrific, thank you.
You're welcome.
And what about SWAC?
SWAC, we met this morning and we were finalizing this year's goals for physical activity group. We created one source resource for teachers. While the nutrition group was focusing on the food access and including school breakfast for the week and back program.
Okay, that's fantastic, thank you. And then what about mental health and well-being?
No updates.
No updates this time, okay. And the school reorganization liaison?
We haven't met since our last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then move on to consent agenda.
Yep. I recommend approval of the minutes from your November 26th, 2024 school committee meeting as detailed. Excuse me. I recommend the acceptance of $5,027.36 from the Parliamentary PCC as follows. $2,964.36 for supplemental supplies and $2,063 for field trips. I recommend the acceptance of $925 from the JFK PCC for field trips as detailed. And I recommend acceptance of $2,000 from Roberta Trahan for 2 FHS scholarships as detailed.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed?
Move to approve the consent agenda as detailed.
Second?
Second.
Discussions, questions? Just want to thank everybody who had made these donations. That's fantastic and a true help to the entire school community. With that though, it'll come on a roll call vote. Gallagher?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Sunpolly?
Yes.
O'Sullivan?
Yes.
And Callahan, yes. Thank you. All right, up next, good of the order, just an opportunity for school committee members to make their statements about ways we might be able to improve. Start down the road, is there anything?
Would like to request Lucas about how many students are coming out of the new arrivals building, or who's bearing the charges on the expenditure in an email.
Okay, coming out of the hotel?
Yes.
Okay, yes, so you want to know the number of students enrolled, and then how the costs are covered.
For the cost and the very important for our side as well, and detail, and you give minor detail we can give off.
Okay, yes, we'll give as much detail as we can, without naming, identifying specific people, but we certainly can provide the level of detail you're asking. Yep, we can do that.
Thank you. And O'Sullivan?
I might not have heard KP as well as I thought, but regarding the kids coming from the hotel, that's been one of the candidates who lost to Becca Rush went on Fox News and talked about this in Boston about how Franklin we were looking to get this override and how we have these hotels filled and things. So that was super, super concerning to a lot of people because we don't think whatsoever that was impacting the school budget. So I think that might be why, hopefully, or maybe this is a different thought, but it's just something that's in the public discourse that we really, really need to shut down. Because I mean, to get to that level of like being on a local TV channel was just, upsetting to a lot of people to hear that because that's not how the community feels. So anyway, for what it's worth.
Yep, and we can provide information. The state did reimburse us for funding for students who are enrolled, who are attending from,
Emergency shelter. Yeah.
correct, from the emergency shelter.
And the state has continued to provide that funding?
Yes.
The reimbursement?
Mhm.
Including transportation, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, citizens' comments, any citizens in the audience, in person or online, who would like to make a comment on an item not tonight's agenda and falls within the committee's purview? All right, seeing none, new business?
Okay, so next meeting will be on January 14th. We expect the cheerleaders who won the state championship to be present for the beginning of the meeting, to be recognized. We also will have Dr. Weber here to provide an update on the program of studies and for the high school as we enter the next stage of already starting to plan for the following year when it comes to course selection and course requests and prepping for incoming freshmen, which you're going to be quite familiar with, Mr. Callahan. And I don't know if you heard Mrs. Gay talk about the high school experience. That's another option you should keep an eye out for as well as we move forward. So those are some of the items that we'll discuss on that date, and I'm sure there'll be other topics that will be pretty timely as well.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, now finally, we will be adjourning into executive session and will not be returning to open meeting pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21-2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Is there a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Move to enter executive session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call, Gallagher?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Sunhall?
Yes.
Oh, Sullivan?
Yes.
Callahan, yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful winter break.
Thank you.